Welcome everyone to our first ever Humanity for Texas digital organizing workshop. This is the first of many. And I say first of many because it's not that you have to attend every single one, but every time we have these, we'll keep improving and we'll keep adding content to help you guys be more equipped. I'll incorporate everybody's feedback and just keep, making this as, useful and productive as we can. And the idea here is that the stuff that we're going to present today will allow you to get involved with Humanity for Texas, either as, as a team member, whether it's an existing project, or as a project leader. If you have an idea for something you want to run, or if you want to join in the number of opportunities, whether it's Donna Imam's campaign, or the Basic Income March, or with ranked choice voting, or with just the general everyday running of Humanity for Texas, then our hope is that after this is over, you'll be able to join in. My name is Hftx Colorado. I am the pro temp president of Humanity for Texas. Humanity for Texas is an offshoot from the Humanity Forward movement started by Andrew Yang. And I'm happy to see a lot of familiar faces and familiar names. So let me go ahead and get these slides going. All right, Dexter, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Yes, okay, good. All right, so this is the first of many digital organizing workshop. For those of you who are watching outside of Zoom, or for those of you who are watching the recording, don't worry if you missed this. The recording will be available later on our YouTube channel, and we will have more workshops for you to participate as we add new content, and maybe some people just want to get interactive. Like I said, my name is Hftx Colorado. I'm the pro temp president of Humanity for Texas. We are an organization that is in the middle of organizing. We have committees on writing our bylaws. We have a committee that's writing our mission and vision statement. And so right now is a really good time to get involved with Humanity for Texas, because if you would like to be essentially like, an organizing member, someone who helped us shape who we are for the years to come, then now is a really great time to get involved. Let's see, okay. So here's the general philosophy of what I'm trying to accomplish with this workshop. Right now, there's a few people doing a ton of stuff, managing the website, running the events that we do have, running social media, trying to promote Donna Imam's campaign. And what we'd like to accomplish is get to the point where instead of having a few people doing a lot of things, we have a lot of people doing a few things. And that's the culture we want to create. And a side effect of that culture, at least my theory, is that if people know that they're not going to have to bear everything that needs to get done, then those people who want to be active leaders and start their own projects know that A, that there's the volunteer pool to do it, and B, that they're not going to be overwhelmed. That let's say you want to organize a basic income march in Dallas or in Austin or in Houston, you know that you're not going to need to do 100% of the work, which as we move through this program, you'll see that there's a lot of work to do to put on a single event. So many hands move the needle. The goal of this workshop is to show you how to take part in the Humanity Forward movement at any capacity, small or large. So whether you're like, you just have a lot of time to give, or maybe you are willing to make a lot of time, or maybe you're a parent, or just someone with a full-time job, whatever your ability is, we want to be able to accommodate it. Now, even though I organize a workshop and I'm putting this on, though my confidence might suggest otherwise, I am no expert. So as you are watching this, I hope you gain something, but also I want you to be actively thinking about in the back of your mind what you would add to this presentation so that we can incorporate it in the next workshop. Like I said, this is a work in progress. All right, a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about is very specific to operating within Humanity for Texas. So stuff like using Basecamp or the templates or specific steps in volunteering and social media, those are all specific to the organization that we're building in Texas. However, the principles can apply to whatever state you're from, as well as whatever organization and perhaps potential affiliate you may be running. So what will we learn today? So today we're going to focus on really primarily two things: using Basecamp, navigating that UI so you know, I have an idea, where do I go? Or I want to join a team, what do I do? That's Basecamp. And then we're going to look at one of the most common tasks that we need to do within the next 2 to 3 months, which is organizing events. There's tons of events that need to be organized, like phone banking, volunteer drive, awareness campaigns. So we're going to look at the tools and process for organizing an event. In the process of learning these two items, we'll cover what it takes to get the word out using social media, newsletter, mass text, and top of all that, so we're going to talk about a lot of means, but at the very top of all of these techniques, none of them beat direct contact. And so we're going to talk a little bit about different strategies for getting the word out. Creating graphics. So we'll talk about how to create graphics for your event or for whatever project you're running. We're going to talk a little bit about the logistics of creating a team. So not just the technical side, like how do you create it on Basecamp, but also like the soft, the relational side of setting expectations, communicating to your team about, what their availability is. So that kind of soft layer of creating and running a team. And other topics as are going to be added to this workshop over time. And so these four are the main ones that we're going to talk about in this workshop. After this workshop, I hope that, you will, the very next thing, when your fingers are itching, in fact, if you haven't done this already, you can do it during this workshop as you're listening in. You can go to humanityforwardtexas.org/volunteer, or you can go to humanityforwardtexas.org and then click the volunteer button. And that is our primary gateway to ingesting new volunteers. What will happen from there is we review each volunteer individually. If you sign up, someone might email you or call you or text you to get to know you a little bit. If you've signed up already, like maybe weeks ago, and you're wondering why no one has gotten back to you, watch out. Someone's about to call you or text you in the next week to follow up on your submission. But that's the very first thing. From there, the stuff that we learn, I hope that you'll take it and use it in one of four areas. The biggest one right now is the Donna IMM campaign, which is, as you know, November is the general election. She won the primary runoff. And so there's a ton of ways that you can implement the lessons from this workshop. We need people to organize phone banking parties. We need people to run fundraisers. We need people to do volunteer drives. So I think of that as reverse phone banking, where there's phone banking and then there's getting the existing pool of volunteers to say, hey, we need to support Donna. This is how you help. So that's a big one. There's a limited window of time between now and November. The other opportunity is the Basic Income March. So I could say this is a huge opportunity because I'll just put it out there. I'll just hat in hand. We're currently looking for people to lead a Basic Income March here in Texas. We don't have a point of contact yet in Texas to run one. So if there's someone who's like itching for something to lead, by all means, and we'll provide, help you with the resources and the means to, elevate you as a leader. So that's an opportunity, the Basic Income March on September 19th, if you can organize it in your city. Throughout the rest of the year, we don't have a specific time frame, although we do have general things in our mind in terms of timing. But we've partnered with Ranked Choice Voting for Texas to bring legislation on ranked choice voting to the Texas legislature. In a nutshell, we are proposing 3 bills, one for primary elections, one for general elections, and one for military overseas ballots. And so we have a Democratic co-sponsor. We just have a lot of things in place to bring legislation for ranked choice voting. And there's a lot of things that need to be done on that front. So those are 3 big areas. And then the final area that you can utilize the skills that you learn in this meeting is with Humanity for Texas directly. If you want to start a team, start a project, like if there's you have an idea to do something that's not already listed, then we are open ears. Like we are trying to build a network. And if we can harness your time and talents in something that you are already interested in, then by all means, we're ready to hear it. And also, like I said, we are in an organizing status right now. And so we are in the middle of writing our constitution and our mission and vision statement. So if that's something you want to be a part of, then you can join a committee and help write those things. All right, so I'm gonna pause real quick, check the chat, make sure I'm not missing anything. Yes, Catherine, Donna Imam has a great shot of winning. The last, in 2018, when the incumbent was held onto his seat, he held onto his seat by only 2.3% last time. And so I believe that Humanity for Texas and the Humanity Forward movement can bring that 2.3%. I have no doubt about it. All right, so let me make sure I'm getting everything in the chat. Running the slides and checking the questions at the same time. All right, so I'm gonna get started with the first section, which is using Basecamp. So if you're not familiar with Basecamp, Basecamp is our organization management tool of choice, at least for the time being. I'm not, if we just started, as you can see in the bottom left, we are just now reaching the end of our trial period, and our board and some of our teams have been using it for the last month, and I've gotten good feedback on it. So this workshop is now like the inaugural announcement that, hey, we're using this, and this is, now I'm going to show you how we use it so that you can use it too. So when you sign up on the website, humanityforwardtexas.org/volunteer, after someone talks to you and gets to know you, they will take your contact information, create an account for you in Basecamp, and you're off to the races. So in order to understand Basecamp, there's 3 areas that you are going to want to pay attention to. So the first is the HQ. You can almost, if you were part of the Andrew Yang campaign or volunteered with the campaign from 2019 to February this year, think of this like, you can think of this either as like the Facebook group Basecamp or like the Slack. So this is like a general free-for-all for everybody in the organization to share ideas, have conversation, that kind of thing. So generally projects and teams will be pulled out of HQ. But this is a great place to, if you have an idea, or if you want, like say, hey, I'm thinking about starting Basic Income March in Austin or Basic Income March in Houston, then going into the message board saying, I'm thinking about Basic Income March in Dallas. Who is it? Right? Something like that. This is a great place to get those ideas out and in the open. And once you post that, I'm going to just post it for the sake of demonstration. People can comment and say, I'm in, right? What do I do? Right? So I highly encourage you guys that whatever it is that you guys want to do, especially if it's one of these big areas that we need help in, that look at this chart after it's, after the recording or after, we'll email the slides out. Look at this chart and say, hey, I want to do one of these things. Then come in here and, put it out there. So this is like the meet and greet area, like ideas collide and people collide. The way that it's organized, I think docs and files and schedule kind of speak for themselves. The big things are the message board and the Campfire. So as you can see, message boards are more thread-based format. This is where I want you guys to put your ideas and talk to other people about joining and collaborating. Campfire is more like, think of Slack. It's just one long, chat room. I recommend coming in here when you first start, introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Hexel. I can't type. Excited to be here. Right. So this is, I highly recommend that, whatever unstructured or just stream of conscience thought you have, if you want to post a picture of your pet, you're more than welcome to do that. But what I generally recommend is if you don't know what you want to say or do, but you just want to say something, you can start in the Campfire. And then when people start responding to you and like, hey, I just threw the idea out there of doing a phone banking party for Donna, and a bunch of people are responding. So what I recommend doing is saying something like, this is a good conversation. Let's take it, right? And then taking a conversation there. Another thing, and we're still playing around with how exactly this will work. So I'm not entirely sure if we'll even keep using this. But there's another thing called automatic check-ins. What I've found is that it helps if people know what that stuff is happening and people are doing stuff, then it can help kind of inspire or keep people motivated to do stuff too. And also, like, apparently Jane is trying to remember what day of the week it is. And you know what? I feel for you, Jane. I feel for you. So, so this could be, you could put whatever it is that you worked on, like ran the digital organizing workshop, or participated in the Constitution Committee and planned for the Mission Committee and started script for next episode of. So this is something that we're experimenting with because I have a suspicion that if anyone's like me, you get inspired by seeing what other people are doing, and this is a good space to do that. All right, so that's HQ. This is kind of the melting pot where everyone that, no matter what role you're going to fill, everyone's on HQ. Start bubbling in your head ideas about things you want to post on the message board, about things you want to do. If you're like, hey, I'm a video creator, someone who wants to do a video project with me, or someone who, what can I create for Humanity for Texas? Really great place to put that kind of stuff. All right, so that's the HQ. How am I doing on time? Okay, not too bad. I know there's someone who has to leave in 10 minutes, so hopefully I can get through the rest of this. All right, so the next area is teams. Teams and projects look extremely similar to each other. The main difference is that teams are generally groups that are long running and that they're not going to go away anytime soon. So usually you'll get added to a team, but but when you create an account, you can actually create your own team if you want. So for example, let's say you wanted to do, I don't know, Austin again, right? The interesting thing about here is I'm not terribly worried if you guys go nuts or get creative with teams, because as long as you don't go in there and add every single person in the organization, the only people who sees the team is the person in the team or the person who created it. So I'm not terribly worried about that. So I'm kind of going to gloss over that because I really want to focus on projects. So projects is kind of the biggest, the unit of what we're going to be doing with Basecamp. If you can imagine, again, this flow of, let's say right after this, you really want to start organizing the Basic Income March in San Antonio, right? So you went to HQ, right? And you said, hey, I'm thinking about doing Basic Income March. You got a bunch of people to verbally volunteer to go. And so where you start is, you can see all your projects, but if you're starting a new project, you go to Noob from template. And we have a few templates that we've already made, and this is going to keep expanding. But the most common one, and so the first one that we created was the event planning template. If you go into there, let's say in this meeting, we're running the Austin, the Houston Basic Income March. It's going to take a second. It's going to take a second or a few seconds because there's quite a lot of stuff in this template. If we go into the to-dos, I don't know if it's kind of small, but you can see there's 116 items under to-dos. And this is an accumulation of all of the things that we've run into or discovered are important to remember when organizing an event. And it covers things from preparing for the event, promoting the event, a little bit of running the event, and reporting on the event after it's done, right? And so how are we doing on time? Sorry, I don't know how long these segments last because this is my first time doing it. So I'll often say, how am I doing on time? And so you can see here that projects are laid out pretty similarly to HQ. There's a message board for big things. And you can also see that in this template, or in the template, I created some message boards for you to fill out as soon as the project is loaded. So this covers everything from basic details to guest speakers, guest organization. I've itemized all of these out because I've done a lot of events for the Dallas Yang Gang, and it's, a lot of these things it's easy to take for granted, like parking location or meeting location, or what to do if you have an outdoor event like a car parade, but then it rains or storms. There's a lot of things that, when we think about it right now, or like in a workshop right now, it's easy to think about. But when you're organizing an event, it can be easy to forget any one of these things. So I generally recommend that you take the time to think about all of these details. If there's something that doesn't apply, you can remove it. But that's part of what these templates are built for, was to allow you to really think about these things instead of like the day of, like, oh shoot, do we have an itinerary for our event? Have we planned on when volunteers are supposed to arrive and how long? Oh, this is a big one. People constantly overlook communicating to the volunteers how long they need to stay after the program has ended to clean up. I don't know, it's not super important in like, well, actually it's still important in even online events, because you can see here, for example, I've, in this sample itinerary, I've even included a 15-minute volunteer retrospective, right? Because how often have you had events, you put a lot of work to put the event on, and you never take 15 minutes to talk to your team about how it went. You really only talk to them maybe a week or 2 weeks later. So that's the kind of stuff that we have on the message board. And I know I'm kind of sliding into the organizing an event part. So I'm gonna just do one more example. Hashtags. This is not as important as the other ones, but it helps a lot to upfront, maybe while you're doing your event planning with your team, figure out right away what are the hashtags to add to your event. Because when we get to talking about promoting your event, I've done this a lot, where it'll take me like 30 minutes to recall every tag that I need to put on something to maximize exposure. But it would be really great. What's a big time saver is if you figure out your tags up front, and then every time you do a post, you just copy paste it instead of figuring it out each time. So that's the taste of the organizing an event, but I'm gonna do a few more things on the Basecamp front. So most of what you do is either gonna be in HQ or in projects. Now, if you're looking at this as, oh my God, another tool, this is gonna be so overwhelming. Well, I wanna cover real quick some things to help you not make it so overwhelming. So first of all, the Hey menu is your notifications. That's probably self-explanatory. What's really useful to me is activity. So if you go in here, the most useful items to me are my assignments. So if you just want to cut past the noise and just say, okay, what do I need to do, right? And what do I need to do, real quickly? Then my assignments is a really great place to just, I got an hour, I want to hunker down, come in here, right? And like what I like about Basecamp, other than its price, which is I think the most attractive thing to me, but it's a solid program. And then one of the things I like a lot about it in particular is it's relatively simple. very simple compared to a lot of project management tools out there. You also could see your to-dos. And then also, if let's say you're running Basic Income March and you have someone on your team, you can see, what's on your teammate's plate or what he's been up to. So the activity tab is a really great place to know what's on your plate, what's on your team's plate in a very concentrated place. There's also upcoming dates. So if this activity tab, filters out all the noise and just shows all the stuff relevant to you. As you can see, I have quite a lot of stuff on my plate as president of for Texas, but that is what it is. Also, I highly recommend this link right here. Add the schedule to your Google Calendar, Outlook, or Ical. So everyone has a phone. Everyone either has iPhone or Android. I highly recommend, clicking this link and adding it to your, to your phone so that you can, not miss stuff. And my phone buzzes at me when something's about to happen. And then also Basecamp has a focus mode, which is really useful because after a while, especially being me, I'm connected with everybody in the organization. It's nice to turn focus mode off so it stops hitting me with notifications. But I also recommend going in here and fiddling with your, turning email notifications off, for example, because this program sends a lot of emails. I recommend turning off email notifications, using focus mode, and downloading the app so that it doesn't hit your email. If you have the app and you don't mind it telling you when stuff happens, then the phone is more, it's better to use the phone than to open your email. Or at least that's my preference. You can also set specific times to say, I don't want it to yell at me. Especially if you have it on your phone, it's I don't want it to yell at me during work hours and during sleepy hours. I only want it to yell at me between 4 and 9 when I'm not at work and I'm awake. So this is a really good way to kind of cut down on the noise because that's been one of my biggest gripes with other tools. And there's my stuff. So this is another just shortcut version of what we saw on the activities. How are we doing? All right, we're at the halfway mark. Cool. So that is Basecamp. Someone was telling me that it takes some getting used to, and it certainly does. I'm not going to lie and that's part of why we have a training, is because there is, every tool is different and everything does things a different way. And this is a very specific way. All right, I'm going to check the chat real quick. All right, so real quick. Is this a tool that is going to need to be paid for? Just noticed that the trial expires. Yeah, so every other tool that I've looked at has a cost per user. When we were, I'll tell you a story. When we were organizing the rally in Dallas, we were using Asana, and it was $11 or $12 per user, or $11 if you did it annually. And so we had 30 or 40 people on Asana. And so I was on the trial, and I had to make sure that I timed it. I canceled the trial as soon as the rally was over, because it was going to give me a bill of $2,000 if I didn't immediately cut off the trial. So this one, it's full disclosure, it's I'm paying it out of pocket right now, which is fine because we don't have a treasury. So this is just my personal expense. But it's a flat rate fee for unlimited users. So you guys don't have to worry about it. Let's see, other questions. Thank you, John. I hope you check out the recording later. At the end of the presentation about the 25th. Yeah, Massey, I'll give you 2 minutes when we get past the material, because I would love for you to speak about action on the 25th. And yes, Catherine, the Basic Income March is going to be huge. All right. So in fact, I'll reiterate this. As we're going through all of this stuff, this may even help you guys absorb things. Be thinking about how you can apply one of these 3 projects, or perhaps more urgently, these 2 projects as we go through the material. Okay, I think I've sufficiently covered Basecamp, but Oh, there's also pings. So this is the version of like, who's on here? Austin Rock. So this is just the plain old direct messaging part of Basecamp. It works just like any other direct messaging thing. And so I know he's on the workshop, so he probably just got that. All right, let's see, other questions. Can you create group chats? So, so group chats would, at least in Basecamp, would be team or project, or so you can't create like a la carte group chats, but you do have a chat specifically for, in fact, let me even turn it on here. Oh, it's already on, sorry. Yeah, so they call them campfires, but you have team-based chats and project-based chats. You can't just add multiple names to the ping thing. I don't know, let's find out. So no, yeah, so you can't have group chats pinging, but keep in mind it's pretty similar to, if you had a very specific conversation, you could always create a message board, and you can also choose who's added to the message board. So my personal view is there's already a ton of opportunities for siloed group conversations in Basecamp. And so my preference, I know this is all a matter of preference, but if you had a conversation that was for a very specific group of people on a very specific topic, you can create a message board and choose who gets notified about it. And that would get the equivalent of a group chat, because and people get notified the same way. So hopefully that answers your question. Yes, Basecamp has a discount for nonprofits. Yeah, so we currently are not pursuing the, wait, this works, yeah. Oh, there you go, ping with Grace. Okay, I didn't know you could do that. I don't know how you did that, but good job, you figured it out. What's in folks' profiles? On people's profiles, it's very basic. So it really has their name, email, title, and company. And I haven't figured out yet like what's a good way to divide people up by title and company, but it's something we're exploring. And we might do it similarly to the National Slack does, where if they have a specific role, then they put it in their title. And if they're part of a specific chapter, then they can put, HF Austin. We haven't figured out the conventions for that yet. So that might be something we look into. That's something we will look into. All right. I'm going to go ahead and keep the questions coming, but I'm going to go ahead and move on to the organizing an event part of this, because I would like you guys to, as I said multiple times, be thinking about how you apply this for your, whatever project you want to pick up or whatever project you want to take part in. So here we can see that we create an event using the template, right? We already covered the message board. Your team can put whatever message, new thing on the message board that you want. You could even customize it, like depending on like the nature of your team or the nature of your project, you could even create like different threads based on different categories. Like you can see here, the default I've created are event details, FYIs, questions, and suggestions. But if there was some other category of thing, like, I don't know, emergency, right? Then you could create that, depending on what the nature of your project is. And then you can also filter them, like show me only the emergencies, for example. So you kind of saw what chat room and message board is earlier. I'm going to walk through the to-dos because we're kind of transitioning to from talking about Basecamp to talking about event planning in general. So I've divided this into multiple sections. And over time, as you guys, in fact, let me do something real quick. If you guys are thinking about it, I'm going to put this in the chat. if I can find the chat. Do I not have chat? Oh, here it is in the window. Do projects have calendars? Yes, they do. So here's another interesting thing. You can actually turn things on or off depending on if you need them. So in this case, I had schedule turned off by default, because if you're doing an event plan, at least for me, a lot of times the main thing on the calendar is the date itself. But if you had like a big event that was being planned out over multiple, let's send it to everyone. If you had a big event that was being planned out over multiple months or multiple weeks, then you can turn schedule on and then get those, milestones or important dates for your team or for your project. Depending on how advanced your project or your team gets, you can even turn on, to have your own automatic check-ins. So those are the recurring questions that are asked every week or every month. You could even, and I haven't even played around with this yet, but we're incorporating it into our membership committee, the volunteer form ingestion, is to have email forwards go straight into Basecamp so that our membership committee can tag team doing the volunteer follow-up. Does Hftx have a shared Google Calendar? Not yet. I know we should, and I know events is one of our biggest things. I know the irony of having a workshop about event planning and not having a Google Calendar. It's because we haven't figured out how we wanted to consolidate all the variety of teams and projects. All right, I'm going to give a helicopter view of all of the categories of things. As you can see, I've divided this massive to-do list up into multiple sections. When you create a new project from this, you can decide how much of this stuff do you actually need. And maybe there's stuff in here that you haven't previously considered, or how much of this stuff that maybe it's not necessary for our particular event. For example, maybe your typical event doesn't require you to, what's one that you might not do? Advanced, so I created a separate section for advanced Facebook promotion, right? And so maybe you're doing a low-key workshop like what we're doing right now. And so you don't really need to spend money, or you don't really, it's not super important to you that you message every single person. So you can go in here and after you've created a new event based on the template, you can come in here and, you can, where is it? Put in trash or archive. You can remove a specific group of to-dos. On the other hand, I would imagine the basic income march is pretty large. And so a lot of these things you may consider keeping. Additionally, some of these items deal with before the event, and some of these items deal with after the event and follow-up. So the only one I'll go into great detail is event planning and graphics, and I'll touch on the subjects. Event planning, like we said, is things that basically make up the IRL non-digital part, but they still include a lot of stuff that needs to be considered. A lot of this speaks for itself. I think the only thing that I would point out as particularly special is a few of these. One is preparing a volunteer roster for your event. So I'm a Boy Scout, or was a Boy Scout, and rosters was a huge thing in scouting. And so what I've seen happen a lot of times is on the day of an event, there's confusion about who's supposed to be doing what, whether it's something basic like hosting or emceeing, to another thing like, who's checking in at the door, or who's doing cleanup, or, if it's a very long event, who moves out in shifts. So that's one thing that I think it's really important to have. Another thing that's really important to plan for is, itinerary, publish event. This one, how do we plan on collecting people's information during and after the event? So in Dallas, we had a lot of coffee socials because we had it every week. We had a weekly coffee social. And we had it in Dallas, Fort Worth, Denton, and Plano. And one of the things I strongly urged the coffee social organizers to do is have a paper sign-in sheet at the social. And the reason was because even though a lot of people might have registered or RSVP'd online, they, a lot of times people will just show up without registering, or they'll bring a friend or a family member, or the registration doesn't ask for other useful things like their phone number or their email. And so knowing how you're going to collect people's information at the event or after the event is extremely crucial, because if you look at this list, you spend perhaps hours preparing for the event itself. And it'd be a real shame if, you put all this work and didn't collect people's information. So you had a way to follow up with them. By the way, there's our survey, so I can get your information and follow up with you about the next workshops and things we're planning next. So that's one that's, that's not as common. And yeah, those are I think those are two of the big things. Whenever you get into Basecamp and check this out, I highly recommend walking through each of these items and really taking the time to answer each and every one of them, because a lot of these seem really basic, but I've been to a lot of events where simple questions. I mean, if you think about the car parade, for example, where to park and where to meet. Like I haven't been to a car parade, but I've been to a lot of in-person events and organized a lot of in-person events. These are two separate questions, especially if you're doing something downtown. You have to plan for the fact that people will meet somewhere different from where they put their car. So those are two examples of things. So yeah, so that's the details of event planning. All right, so here's one that often gets overlooked. All right, buddy, you have to decide where you want to go. Sorry. So graphics. This is really short, but it's something that I recommend doing at the beginning, or finding someone who can help you with this at the beginning, is create at least 4 sets of graphics. So the first one is a Facebook event cover, a widescreen header graphic, a social media announcement, and event reminders. And the reason that you create these, first of all, I recommend whether you're a graphic person or you can find someone to join your team who has access to graphic software, it's very useful to just get this out of the way once, so that whenever you do your posts or you do your reminders, you don't have to come up with this stuff on the fly. And I've included all of the details about these, so you know exactly what size, exactly what ratio, so that when you, one of my pet peeves, whoops, wait, I'm gonna have to edit this before I put it on YouTube. So it doesn't include those stream keys. But what was I saying just now? Oh yeah, so one of my personal pet peeves is when we go into an event and they clearly didn't size the cover for the, towards Facebook specs. So it's cut off, there's a heading and it's chopped off, or there's someone's face and it's sliced in half. So I put the exact resolutions you need for each of these, in the task. Same thing for the website header. So if you go to humanity4texas.org and you go to our events, you can see they all, display nicely in the right ratio. And same thing for a blog post. In fact, I always recommend that, when you get to the website phase of this, you use the same photo for the blog post and the calendar. And then another side effect of using the correct size image is that when you take that link and you go into Facebook or any other social media sharing, wait for it. There you go. Your thumbnail will be correctly proportioned. So if you're putting really eye-catching or important information in your blog post or in your event announcement, by using the correct ratio, the whole thing is gonna be in there. So yeah, so those are graphics. Now, if you're reading this, it's like, oh, great, I am not a graphics person. What am I going to do? Well, first of all, here's what I recommend. To help make things as easy as possible, on the HQ, wait, where is it? Okay, I will add it to HQ, but I have created a template for event graphics that you can download. I'm going to put this over here. And I'm currently working on a Google Drawings version of this because I know not everybody has Illustrator. It's kind of expensive. But so I'm working, and that's a to-do. So if anyone wants to help me create the template in other file formats, then that's another project you can help me with. But you can see here, I've created an Illustrator file that has the template already created. So all you have to do is go in here and say, you know, basic income March, right? Swap out the image. Where's my, yeah, go in here, linked file, swap the image out for something else, and you're golden. Wait, I don't know why it's not doing it. Okay, swap the image out, right? Hand wave over the technicality. But you can see here, this template already contains all of the graphics you'll need in different formats. Another thing I'll talk about in terms of graphics is, now this is a judgment call. How am I doing on time? Okay, going a little long on this section, so I'll try to speed this one up. One of the things, but this is really important. One of the things I tell my team or the people organizing events for me is that your attendance is almost directly correlated to how many reminders you put out. So if you don't put any reminders at all, even if you did all the work of announcing it up front, no one's going to show up to your event. And that's happened a lot, maybe one person or two people are going to show up. But if, for example, but if you have a lot of, like if you had an event reminder every day for 2 weeks or for a month saying, hey, this is coming in 2 weeks, next week, in 3 days, in 2 days, tomorrow, that there's almost a direct correlation. Like even this event here, we have 12 people and I started putting out reminders 3 days ago, which in my mind, compared to the other things I didn't do, makes sense, right? But you have to make a judgment call about how much of these you're going to do, because obviously the more reminders you put out, the more work it is to create reminders. Because I generally try to use a unique image each time so that people don't, it registers in people's mind that it's a different graphic, so they take the time to stop and read it. So obviously it takes more time to produce more graphics. But if you have a big event and you're trying to maximize the exposure, it's well worth it. So that's that. Those are graphics. I have it currently here. I'll make sure it gets on the HQ so that people can see it. And I also recommend, like, if you have a graphics person on your team who is separate from like the social media person, or just to make it more accessible, whenever you create your graphics, I usually recommend putting it in the graphics folder of your project. So yeah, so that is graphics. Website pre-event. So a lot of these tasks, and that's part of why, you know, we have teams. We have a digital team that if you're looking at this as like, oh, I'm really good at graphics. In fact, I could probably do graphics better than Hexel. Then tell me one way or another, either post it on HQ or ping me, and I will add you to the digital team. Because right now, again, as I said, this is a relatively inaugural workshop for Basecamp. And I would happily add you to the digital team to help us with create those graphics. And we're still working on a workflow for that. If someone starts a project, but they need graphics done, they don't have to hunt for a graphics person specifically for their team. They can just put it into the digital team somehow, to-do list somehow. So yeah, let's keep running down the list. So website of pre-event. So these are the stuff that you do to the website before the event. What I usually recommend is obviously put it on the events page on the website. And again, that's going to be another thing that if you're listening to this, a hand selected few of you have access to the website, especially if we're adding you to like a committee or to the board. But if you don't have access to the website, then you would direct your request to someone on the digital team. But you can see here, it usually goes on the website and on the blog, and that's why the thing is important. But another thing, and this is not for every project or team, but it's something we introduced. We have a calls to action page. And so this is the page where if you, if there's something that you don't need people to join Basecamp and coordinate on, like people can just do this from their home, then we create a calls to action page where you can just go and just, run down the list and knock some stuff out. It's something we're experimenting with. I haven't seen it done like this in other places, but that's one of the things that we've incorporated into our process. Next category is, so you can basically see that I have different categories for the different social media that we run. And so you're making the announcement on Twitter, you're making the announcement on Instagram, and you're making the announcement on Facebook. On Facebook, we did incorporate specifying not just posting it on the Humanity for Texas Facebook page itself, which again only has a handful of admins, but also all of the groups that it needs to be cross-posted to, which is something that anyone can do, right? And one other thing I recommend is like when you are doing this set of tasks for your event to promote it, take the time to not only run through all of these to make sure your bases are covered. You might have to refine it. For example, if you're doing, Houston basic income march, then, you don't need to put it in the Dallas or the Fort Worth group, but might not be a bad idea though to help get their support. But also like, let's say you're doing like a ranked choice voting awareness event or a climate change event, right? Then you can do your research on Facebook and look for other groups that might be interested in your event, and you can add them to your list, right? So when you have like your kickoff planning meeting with your team to sit down and set the roadmap for your event, then that's one of the things you'll want to consider doing is thinking about the Dallas groups, interest groups, family, friends groups. So we found that Facebook is a pretty useful tool for engaging people. And this is one way to expand it by making sure you cross-post everywhere you need to. Text and email. So Humanity for Texas, we have a texting service for mass texting. So this is another one where you write, so as a team, you don't need to have access to Textedly or the newsletter to help split the load and write the newsletter segment or the text, right, for us. And so part of this here is to help the digital team or make it life easier for the digital team, write the newsletter piece or write the text message and send it to the digital team so they can distribute it for you. So those are the pre-event stuff. In addition to the pre-event stuff, or there's Reddit, same process. Like we have the baseline subreddits you should post to, but you can also, based on the nature of the event, you can also do post on our, I think it's basic income, right? Or post on our Dallas, right? So when you guys when your team takes the time to look at the to-do list and groom it for your event, another thing you can consider is like thinking about, maybe we can cross post outside of the Yang Gang to things like specific communities. Some questions we got: are the graphics from multiple teams searchable for other teams to reuse? Not site-wide, because teams are generally are private by default. So we may have to figure out a different solution for, beyond putting them in docs and files, which you can, create a folder for. If you have something that can be reused by someone else and should be reused by someone else, then you can drop it into docs and files. I kind of like that it's not publicly available by default, because it has a way of being deliberate about whether or not it's shared. Because, if I create a very specific graphic, like, provided a template, but chances are this graphic, for example, probably you can't use it wholesale because it has a very specific date and a very specific link, right? So if you wanted to reuse this in particular, then you'd have to do some editing anyways. That being said, I'm probably going to create a repository for photos so that you don't have to because as a guy who did a lot of events, I happen to be sitting on a treasure trove of Yang Gang photos, and so it's pretty easy for me to find. But speaking of, so that's probably going to be a Google Doc. But one thing I didn't mention, you could link to Google Drive from docs and files. So if you already have a repository of stuff, you don't have to re-upload it. You can just link to it from docs and files. Is there any sort of editor built in, or do we have to bring them in Google Drawing or basic events? There's a very basic file for, if you wanted to do just something like a memorandum or something. So that's how you can do some really basic stuff. But yeah, if you have something more advanced, like a spreadsheet, not for picture editor. Buddy, you are a real distraction today. Sorry, buddy. I would recommend for online, and it's one of the things I wanted to do. I had, back when we were DFW for Yang, not Humanity for Texas, we had Google Drawing templates, which were, Google Drawings is free and anyone can use it. So we used that for templates. I just need to make a Google Drawings version of the template I built in Illustrator. So that's something that's coming. It's in the works. But the one thing I found was Google Drawings. It was funny. I did all the work of making the Google Drawings templates, and then I was really frustrated, why weren't people using them? It turns out Google Drawings doesn't work on mobile. So I had to find some, I'm actively looking for a solution that can create graphic templates that work on mobile. Haven't found one yet, but I'm still looking. So if anyone knows a good suggestion, then please, by all means. Because I know there's mobile apps for creating graphics, but my pet peeve was that everyone would use something a la carte. And so whenever it was for my template, it looked unified with the rest of the social media branding. But whenever someone used an app, it always looked a little janky. Okay, so that's graphics. Those are those. I'm realizing the reason I'm not seeing the ones I'm looking for is because I removed them. So if I go to, I'm going back to my template. All right, for some stuff that I removed. All right, so there's basic stuff that you need to do. There's also some advanced tasks that, depending on the nature of your event, you can remove these. But especially if you're thinking about something large, like a basic income march, then there's some tasks here that will help. And there's some tasks here that require some explanation because they're not the most obvious or intuitive. So one of the advanced things that I highly recommend, if you have the people willing, and you need a lot of people to do this, is to direct message people on Facebook. I'll give you an example. We haven't rebranded the groups yet. It's something we're still deliberating over. But you can see there's 628 members of this group, right? And there's people posting to it every day. which is actually part of the problem, that there's people posting to it every day. So I've observed that a lot of people won't notice if you post it in the group, right? Like as an admin, I don't know where I would see it, but like I don't know if they still show it, but it used to be that it will tell you how many people have seen a post, right? And so when we were doing the Dallas rally, and we had over 1,100 people come to the Dallas event, we knuckled down and we wrote a script and we messaged individually every member of the group saying, hey, Andrew Yang's coming to town on December 6th. Here's the link. We hope you can join us, right? When we first started, we started doing that 2 weeks before the rally date, but we had already been announcing it for a month. And so, but when we started messaging directly, when I started messaging directly, I sent a message to someone. And within like 15 seconds of me sending my pre-written message, he responds back with, because of your message, I just bought the $500 ticket. Thanks for the reminder. Another guy I messaged said, oh, Andrew's coming to town? Cool, I didn't know. And I was like, dude, we've been posting on social media literally every day. How could you not know? So if you have a high profile event where you really want to maximize, people awareness and turnout, then one advanced thing you can do is to direct message people on Facebook. Now that is a huge effort, not only because that's a lot of people to message. And when you start looking at other groups, when you start looking at like starting to add the Austin group or the Houston group to it, if you have a really like statewide event, that could be 1,000 messages. But Facebook limits you to messaging only 70 people, because once you start messaging more than 70 people, it gets, how do I put it? Well, they flag you for spam, right? And it's also not the same thing as like posting a giant group message, because my observation is that if you're like me, you get added to too many group chats. So if I get added to another group chat, man, if I see that there's more than 2 people in the group chat, I'm like automatically removing myself from that group, because I can't handle any more group chats. So there's just something very personal and very direct about the direct message. But if you want to go this route, you have to like really enlist a lot of helpers, because one person is stuck at 70 and you can't do more than 70, but it's super effective because, we had people buying tickets like seconds after you message them if you do it directly and you don't do like a giant group. So, and that's, we break it down to like, if you're going to take that route, it helps to, what we did with the Dallas rally was we took the group, like we created a task, we broke this out and said, call A, call B, call C, right? And then we would let people pick up, we would let people assign themselves to a letter, right? So this person would call all of the names that started with A. Max per day ever. My observation was I tried doing it the next day, and I think it lasts for a week. So this is a very advanced technique. Only do this if you're willing to put in the time and you have the people to put in the time. But I would tell people, as soon as you hit that max, it starts warning you, say, hey, you're kind of going fast, maybe slow down there. As soon as you see that message, stop, right? And you can still use Messenger after. Like if you start getting the warning that you have hit, you're starting to look spammy, you can message other people with a completely different message, and it's not going to stop you. But it's going to stop you if you, if you message people that you're not already friends with, and then B, if there's a link in your message. So they're not going to stop you from using Messenger altogether, but they're going to be more vigilant about spam. So that's that. I'm going to remove these to clean it up. Delete. Okay. And also under advanced Facebook promotion, purchasing a boosted ad. So If you've ever seen a boosted ad from Facebook for a Humanity for Texas event, you'll see it's paid for by Hexel, Colorado. Again, we don't have a treasury. We're not incorporated yet. So this is all just people giving of their own, time. But I will say for anyone who's on this call, who's thinking about doing boosted ads, if you do your targeting right and you give enough lead time, you could actually pick up a few like new strangers, right? Or new people to your event. I don't know the science of it very well. I just know it's worked for me a little bit. So if there's anyone, if you know someone with like a more social media marketing background, they might be able to help you with that. But the one thing I will tell you is if you're thinking about doing this option, make sure that you register with Facebook ahead of time, right? Because it takes weeks. I think it took me 2 weeks. Because what they do is you have to upload your ID and you have to give your name, social, like they really background check you now. And they send you a postcard and it's not first class mail. In fact, I think it took me 4 weeks because I didn't receive the postcard the first time. I had to re-request it. So they send you a postcard to your house address and you have to like put the code in. So for their own reasons, they've made it a deliberately lengthy process. So if you're even thinking about possibly doing it someday, I would recommend going ahead and doing it now so that you don't have to like rush when you actually need it. Little idea there. Okay, that's advanced Facebook. All right, so phone banking. So I was like, wait, isn't phone banking itself a project? So in fact, I should probably call this reverse phone banking. I don't know what the good name for this is, but basically this is another advanced, you really want to like bump up your numbers. And so this is having the organizational roster, working your way back through the existing pool of volunteers. Now I'm demonstrating this I'm talking about this on this workshop, even though currently we don't yet have an open means of allowing any volunteer, because we are trying to crack down on who we provide identifying information to. So know that this is not something you can do right away, but we're working on figuring out something that allows people to do reverse phone banking. We use y'all's account to boost our protest event? When is your protest event? Is it coming in the next few weeks? Saturday, 7. Let's talk about it, because again, this is not an organization account. This is like me, Hexel, Colorado. And I don't want to say anything on the record that would make it go from like, Humanity for. So let's talk later. But yeah, that's, by the way, and that's what I recommend. Let's, because I'm trying to avoid giving any suggestion that Humanity for Texas is paying for anything. Because again, we're not incorporated. We don't have a treasury. If IRS is listening. but yeah, that's Facebook promotion. Reverse phone banking. It's something we're working on, but it's basically, think about what I just described for on Facebook Messenger, the exact same thing, except calling people saying, hey, I need help with an event. Would you be interested in helping? Because we did do that in the early days of the Yang Gang, when the campaign finally created a protocol for allowing regional organizers like myself to access the Yang campaign's database of phone numbers. A lot of people joined the Yang Gang because of that access, and we called people and say, hey, you signed up on the website. Do you want to become a volunteer? And a lot of our best volunteers were onboarded that way. Advanced Instagram promotion is pretty much the same thing, right? I've never bought an ad on Instagram. I got to say it. I haven't actually tried that one myself, but it's owned by Facebook. So I assume the process is the same. Actually, I have bought an Instagram ad once, but I don't remember how well it did. All right, so those are all of the things that you can do leading up to your event, crossing different mediums, different social media. The very last thing that I want to point out, again, and these are probably the most overlooked things, is stuff that what am I trying to say? Stuff that you do after the event is over. So I gave an example of it where when I was looking at the itinerary, I highly recommend, like, this particular event, for example, is a one-man show. So I don't have a team to recap with. So please, again, make sure that you fill out that survey. That's my version of the volunteer follow-up. And let me know what you liked and what you would improve. But when you are organizing an event, really think about making sure your volunteers know that to stay a few more minutes so you guys can have a retrospect. That might be the Boy Scout in me, but I highly recommend it. And this is the first of this type. So, you know, whatever feedback you give me will absolutely be incorporated in the next time I do the workshop. But some other things that are post-event that often get overlooked, if I can remember to go into my template, there you go, is documenting your event. So I'm going to do something real quick. I think by now, if there were any trolls, they would have gotten bored. So I think everybody who has their video on is like a real person. So I'm going to, if you don't want your picture taken, you can turn your camera off. Or if you want it, I am now about to take a virtual group photo by snipping my video screen. So if you want your picture taken, get ready to smile. If not, you can turn your video off. That's fine too. Okay, hold up. Where is my thing? Okay. Everybody smiling and ready for a photo? Okay. Ready? 3, 2. Okay, I got it. And you know, there it is. Look at that. All right. So and the reason I did that is because when you are hosting an event, even though this is something that you do after the event, actively think about photos, documenting, because again, it's one of those things, you put so much work into an event and there's so much value to be generated from the event after the event is over. And so, for example, I'm going to do this again, and I want to be able to show people that people actually attended and that people smiled and it actually happened. And when I was doing the Dallas Coffee Social every week, the very first event had only 2 other people, myself plus, you know, John Murphy and Tony Yen, right? And even though there was only 2 people, I still took a group photo, right? I made sure we were all smiling. We had, you know, our coffee in our hand. And I put that online. It says, great coffee social. Thanks for coming, guys. See you next week. The very next week, we tripled in size. We had 9 people. And then the next week, we had 11 people. It got to the point where we were averaging like between 15 and 20 people every week on a Saturday morning to have coffee with the Yang Gang. And so when I would ask, every week I would ask people, like after our program was over, I would ask them, what made you decide to show up? And he said, well, I'd always seen it and I wasn't sure. Like I never met the Yang Gang before. But every time you guys had a coffee social, you guys would post a group photo and I'd see all of these friendly faces. And I'd say, oh, okay, these guys are real. I have to come by sometime. So I plan on doing more of these workshops. And so you guys just gave me the fodder to bring more people in. So thank you. That said, having someone, one of the things I recommend, if you have, especially if you have the team for it, is make sure up front, designate who's responsible for taking photos. Especially if you're the one running the event, like if you're emceeing, you don't have time to stop and like pause the program to take pictures. So make sure you know exactly who's going to be in charge of documenting. And also make sure that people know how to send photos to you. And if you see people taking photos, make sure to ask them for those photos, because that's almost like really more advice for past me, because there's so many pictures, so many events that I wish I had taken the time to get people's contact info so I can get their photos. So document, collect photos as much as you can, and put them in a blog to recap what happened. So I wrote, even though I wasn't there, we added a recap blog post and I try to get as much graphics. Well, I try to get what graphics I could, and did a recap so that it helps as a way of adding more value, generating more value on the work that you already put in. So writing a blog post, posting on social media, posting it on Reddit, post on all the same Reddits that you posted on before, and then organizing the follow-up. So this is, we talked earlier about making sure you had a planned means of collecting people's information. This is the part where you take advantage of that. So make sure that you've collected all this new volunteer surveys. Make sure that you send an email or a text saying, thank you for coming to my event. I'm so happy. Please fill out this volunteer survey and let me know how we did. And also, and this is huge, if you have a guest speaker or a guest organization, I mean, I know like a lot of people probably learned this as like just good etiquette. Make sure you call your guest speaker and thank them for attending, and do it the day after. I mean, do it immediately after, but also do it you could also do the day after, because I remember reading somewhere that like, if you thank someone after some time has been removed, then it has a higher impact. I don't mean that as a manipulation way. I mean that to like maximize, the good feelings. Maybe even think about giving them a gift. I'm Filipino, so I'm big on gifts. That's a little stereotypical, but have an event retrospective. Make sure you plan on doing that. And finally, start planning your next, your follow-up event or your next big thing. Like, what do you do after the event? And start adding that to Basecamp. Start planning your next project to, catch the wind of your event immediately after the event is over. And that's 112 tasks or 116 tasks. And this will just keep growing. But those are all of the stuff that, I'm sure there's stuff that I could have gone into more detail on. If you ever jump into here and start utilizing this, then by all means, suggest ways to grow this. I mean, I could imagine this growing even bigger. One area, for example, that I still haven't incorporated yet, but I was talking to Daniel Ayerzon, for example, and I got a list from him of all of like the Yang Gang creators. And I've been thinking about a way to incorporate some kind of way of getting these people on board when you have a really big thing. So obviously, like, you have just normal coffee social, they're busy people. They probably don't want to have you. Faye, you probably see your own roundtable in there at the top of the list. But so we're actively growing our event planning template, and, I have no ego. Like, again, like my first slide said, I'm no expert. I'm just a guy who's been like committed to Yang Gang for over a year, and I just try to collect everything I have. All right, so we're really almost time. We might go a little, it's 8:20. We have 10 minutes left. I did cover graphics. I think I covered most things. I think that's all the material. Let me get into questions on chat, and then I'd like to spend the last 10 minutes, taking questions. So what did I miss? Hex recording this. You could ask about recording. Yes, so I am recording this. It's going to be on Facebook immediately because it's already streaming to Facebook Live right now. And I'm going to also upload it to YouTube afterwards, so it's on post places. And by the way, so for everyone, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Humanity for Texas. Help us get those numbers, subscriber count up. We have, I think, almost 500. I'd like to get to the 500 mark. I'd like to get my first yang of subscribers. We already kind of qualify for monetized videos. I don't know how we would handle that, but so we just get more, the algorithms love, more subscribers. So definitely do that. Let's see, more creators for you. I have more, yes. If you saw that list of creators, then please, by all means, tell me. Also, Twitter accounts. Like, I've been pretty bad at, like, I think one of my biggest weaknesses is Twitter. So if you have like a repo of Twitter accounts that need to be notified every time something big is happening, that's a blind spot on my part. So if anyone has those. Basic income March planning spreadsheet. Oh, nice. So yes. So, hat in hand, like, as you can probably tell, I have a lot of things that I'm working on at the same time. One of the biggest gaps or oversights is the basic income march for me personally, because as you can probably see, I have a lot of things my hands are on. So if there's anyone on this call who's like itching to organize something, please, the basic income march is currently on, it's on the table. All right. Okay. And yes, thank you for reminding me. All right. So I think I'm going to open it up once again. These are the things I want you guys to be thinking about. If you are new to Humanity for Texas, then please follow us on all of our social media. Fill out the volunteer survey, which is right here, and watch out for the next episode. We're trying to do an episode of Weekly Roundup every week. And also, if I had someone volunteer on a website that said they were a video editor, which makes me really excited. I'm going to be following up with that person. But weekly, like again, just putting out opportunities for you guys to help. It took me about 5 hours to edit the last episode of Weekly Roundup. Obviously, that was my first time doing that specific format, so it'll be faster in the future. But if there's any other video editors that want to help me split that work up, then by all means. All right, so that's all I've got. Again, thank you for your time, and I'm going to start looking for hands. So if you have a question or a comment, use the hand raise feature. But I'm going to first start with Massey. Hey, Massey, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. It's great to be increasingly more involved, and it's been lonely on the national, and it's really cool getting back onto the local and getting to work with people like Grace. And just wanted to recap. We had a great action on July 11th. Had about 20 people there. Got retweeted by Andrew.
Yeah.
And so that was super exciting, and so we made some noise. We were respectful, and we didn't get a response, didn't get a letter. We have asked for town halls. We tried to do it right. So we're ramping up our action locally in Houston on the 25th, but we're also trying to get these actions spread out across the country. So we're looking for people to host actions in their cities directed to conservative Congress members such as senators. Corn, obviously this is Texas, so it's either Corn or Cruz, as well as, and he lives in Austin. We have the home addresses of every member of Congress, and that includes Senate and House. Also, some prefer to go to their offices, and that's understandable, but we've just found it more effective if we at least, go a couple of days ahead, say we're coming to your house, unless you want to schedule a town hall with us. And then sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But it's been effective in getting legislation passed in other states, and so we're trying to expand that. So we're like I said, it's on the 25th, and there's Senate Republicans as well as progressive House Democrats. And the idea is we want to put pressure on Republicans to accept a monthly stimulus checks. And that's the idea is, sort of get people used to UBI. Once they start getting those monthly stimulus checks, they're going to realize how much it helps everything. And it's going to be almost impossible to take them away. So that is the big main thing we're pushing. But obviously, in part goes with that is renter and mortgage support and police reform, rethinking police. Look to your local community leaders and find allies within them and help build that coalition that speaks to your community and the messaging that works best with that. But so we're doing one in Houston, and Houston, for example, they between the ACLU, BLM Houston, and a bunch of other local Black and people of color led orgs, they had a whole report done, and so we're supporting a report done that has 5 actions, and so that's what we're doing. That's local, and it's meant for us. And I guess what I'm speaking to everyone here is that if you're interested in hosting an event where you are finding and targeting a local member of Congress, that would be super helpful. I'm going to drop a link inside. Catherine already did it, and I'm just going to go do it again.
And I'm saving the chat. So if you guys have any valuable information at all, drop it in chat and I'll save it.
I'm going to drop it again just so y'all have it. But you can sign up here. And so it's in coalition with the Movement for a People's Party. They're a non-Democrat, non-Republican sort of forward-thinking, progressive organization that is, tied sort of with, the establishment. And I think as Yang Gang, we've seen, how Yang was sidelined and not even included in the debates. So I think there's a much sentiment of brotherhood and sisterhood with this organization. They've been a great partner with us so far. So go there, you can see events on a map. You can sign up there and come be a part of it. And you can also host one there. And the basic thing is, do what you can, even if it's just like, you and a friend or two going and knocking on a person's office or door with a camera, or even just leaving a note if that's what you feel, most comfortable doing. The goal is we want to show that we're organized, because they fear organized voters who have the same messages, who are all working together, because they know that's how they get kicked out of office and how their friends get kicked out of office. And when they don't have their friends, they lose that power of ability to word and sway votes. So that's what they really fear. So the more we do just these little things, obviously bigger actions are better. You put the time in, you work with those local orgs, and you have 100 people show up, or even 20. That's great. But even 3 shows something, and it lets them know that we're there and we're organized and we're all across the country. So if you'd like to learn more, you can find me on Facebook under Richard Massey Branscombe. Again, there's that organization for signing up there. I dropped earlier the one for our Houston event, so you can see what it looks like. Create a Facebook event. It's pretty simple, and it's really what you sort of put into it. All what Hexel was saying is the more you do, the bigger it is going to be. But it takes work, but it was a lot of fun, honestly. It was really cool reconnecting with people, and I know it's short notice given the time. It's sort of been a nonstop grind for us to try to keep everything going nationally, as well as me getting this local one. But again, any little thing helps and shows them we're connected and working in unison. So just a reminder, and thanks for letting me have a minute or two of your ear.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, like the July 11th was really good. Grace No, one of our HFT, our HFT vice president, actually, she was there.
Yeah, she was killer.
Yeah, and she was talking about there are 3 people there who are not familiar with Yang Gang, or just vaguely familiar with Yang Gang, and 3 people signed up and said, "Hey, bring me on board, keep me posted." Yeah. So yeah, I mean, sometimes you don't realize how effective or how valuable things are until you do it, and so.
Yeah. And we had 10 people who knew, but they were sort of more from the Bernie camp and the MPP side. But it shows that, like, hey, we have these things in common, and we have way more in common than we have separated. There's this sort of sense of these campaigns divide people who are, overwhelmingly similar in belief, right? We find these little wedge items to sort of separate us, but overwhelmingly we're on the same side here. So it's a great way to bring people together and remember that we are Americans. We do believe in rights and, a better, future. So fun action, recommend.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we had one hand up. Oh, I don't see the hand anymore. It was wasn't it Cesar Marquez? I think it was you. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay. Well, first off, man, I just want to say the work that you're doing is amazing. I know you played a huge part in Donna's race, so a huge props to you. I was a little bit late because I'm on Pacific time, but no, I just wanted to just ask if we could connect, because I think a lot of the stuff that you're doing over there in Texas, we could probably apply it here in Nevada as well. So I would just like to learn more about the stuff that you've been doing and see if we can incorporate some of that stuff here in Nevada. But yeah, that was pretty much it, man. I think the work that you're doing is amazing. So huge props to you, man, for hosting this event as well.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. And I'm really excited to hear that you're from Nevada, but you are following the Donna race. So that gives me a lot of that makes me very happy. So my email, first of all, yeah, I see everything that comes to the website. So for starters, if you fill out the volunteer survey, as well as if you if you sign up on the website, you'll get a hold of me. So I'm seeing you either way, but if you want to email me directly just for good measurement, that's my email right there, hexel@humanity4texas.org, and I'll try to get with you.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Cesar, I maybe my brain's fried. Were you at the All States meeting on Wednesday?
Not this Wednesday. I was on the one like
Or
2 weeks.
Thursday, sorry.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think either Chris or Marina or Eileen.
Okay.
Probably.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you're plugged in with them. As long as you're
Yeah,
plugged
yeah,
in.
for sure. Yeah, they're updating me on our board member meeting. So yeah.
Awesome, cool. It goes for anyone else. If you're not from Texas and you're in a state and you're looking at how to separate us and you're somehow not in with the Humanity First movement, the grassroots arms of trying to help all these states stay connected. I know Catherine is part of the interim board, and she's on the chat. DM one of us or look up Humanity First movement on Facebook, and we'll help get you integrated into this network we're building.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just throwing it out there for those who are not familiar, there's two organizations at play here. There's Humanity Forward Texas, which is Texas specific. Here's our website. But also Humanity First movement. What's your website?
Catherine, so there's a change there, like we had to update something and it went down. So I'm not sure if it's up. What is it, Catherine? hfmovement.org. There we go. It's in the chat.
Yes. So HF movement. So we are just, obviously Humanity for Texas is Texas, but HF movement is it's essentially the association tying all of these groups together. And they're also, you can think of them like the bridge between us and Andrew Yang. So Humanity Forward, like official. Catherine, let me unmute you. There you go. Go ahead, Catherine.
Hey, so I just wanted to put Kevin Lee on the spot because he's actually one of the folks that is in the national comms team. So I wish he was here when you were kind of talking about some of your digital stuff, but he might be able to share a little bit about what the national level comms wants to do to kind of promote like the state level stuff. But while I'm unmuted, I'll also just say that, we had a meeting with Andrew Yang I'm one of the folks that's on the national board. And we'd love a Texan to run for the next national board in late August. It's like crazy time commitment, but we're really trying to have the strong states be represented and in those direct meetings with Andrew Yang and HF staff members so that, we just build a good collaborative relationship with Andrew Yang's organization. But so we had this meeting with Andrew on Monday, and one of the things that came out of it was for him, he's like, the focus for us and what we can do to like change the national conversation for our benefit is his goal is to get at least 3 members of Congress, 3 US House members that are kind of endorsed by our organizations. And Donna Imam is one of those 3. What they were talking to us about was that the incumbent, he's an older gentleman who is not in very good health, and he just barely won last time. And, it's Texas, so there's going to have to be some serious fundraising, but it's doable. She's a strong candidate. There's definitely like some big money pockets all around Texas that can definitely be brought into her campaign, but like Andrew Yang and Humanity Forward and this whole national network, we want to support you in supporting Donna Imam. So if anyone's like super inspired to help out leading that charge and like getting some more folks in there. But anyways, I'll just stop talking now and see if Kevin doesn't mind chatting.
Okay, yeah, I DM'd Hexel earlier, asking him to like if this meeting was going to be recorded. So hopefully he'll pass the recording along to me.
Oh yeah, it's going to be on Facebook right away, and it's going to be on YouTube very soon.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, sorry for being so late though. I couldn't get on earlier, so I'm not exactly sure like the concept of what I was wondering about, I guess. I don't know. But hopefully catch up with the recording later, and I'll follow up with you if I have any questions.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, definitely. Please reach out to me with any questions, and you know, the recordings on Facebook right away. And I think with that, we're a few minutes over time, but thank you everybody who joined this workshop. Again, this is the first of its nature, so thank you for bearing with me for the rough parts. I now know how long certain things take, and also there are some things that I would have liked to cover, but they were simply not ready yet. Obviously, for example, how do you do reverse phone banking or communications? As you can tell, we are presenting as we build. So we are having another workshop like this. In fact, let me go ahead and share a screen again. So our next workshop is actually Thursday. So it's going to cover the exact same material that we covered today, plus whatever stuff that was in the pipes, like, for example, the Google Drawings version of the template, because not everybody has Illustrator, as well as some other processes that I'm working with our membership committee to flesh out. So if you came tonight, you don't have to come again on Thursday, although you're welcome to. Anyone who missed today can come out on Thursday. And in the interest of those who came tonight but will probably miss whatever is new on Thursday, when I post that recording on YouTube, I will timestamp stuff that you would have missed, like whatever's new. So you don't have to like rewatch every new thing. So that's that. I sent the link in the chat, but once again, I'm going to drop it in here. Please make sure to let me know your thoughts, you know, what you would recommend to improve, and also what you would like to see. There's also a little bit here about, you know, communicating to me how involved you would like to be with Humanity for Texas. So yeah, so please fill out that survey. This is our website. You can see here that you can sign up for our newsletter, or more directly, you can volunteer, and we'll get a little bit more information from you. When you fill out that form, someone, probably me, at least in the beginning, will reach out to you. And if you also go to our website, that's also a good way to find everything. All of our social media, all of our news, all of our blogs are going up here. And if you know anyone or meet anyone who's like, I just want to do something right away, I don't have time for Basecamp, then you can go to our calls to action page and just do something on that list. And this is going to grow because there's a lot to do. You'll watch out for your, you know, after you sign up as a volunteer, watch out for your invite to Basecamp. You can always ping me to, you know, if you're like, how do I do this? How do I do that? It does take some getting used to, but after a while, you get used to it. And you start to, I personally like the way it's organized, because I do think in terms of teams and projects, and hopefully you do too. Make sure you follow us on Facebook. I'm going to actually take this moment to cry for help. If someone knows how to add a like button to this page, if you go here, you will notice that there is not a like button. There's a follow button. I know I'm supposed to be presenting information, but I'm now using this opportunity to, if anybody knows why we don't have a like button, then please explain that to me, because we have a lot more followers than likes. But other than that, make sure you follow us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're Humanity for Texas on YouTube. This is where you'll find the recording of not just this meeting, but really all of the meetings that we do. Our interview with Donna, our interview with Harriet at Ranked Choice Voting for Texas, the last episode of the weekly roundup. It's all here. So it's a good, please subscribe, not just so that you don't miss anything, but also so that the algorithm gods are appeased. Follow us on Twitter for all the same stuff. This is where you'll usually see Andrew Yang retweet us like he did that one time, which made me very happy. And follow us on Instagram for the same deal. We're even on, like, we really try to cover our bases here just for you guys, right? we even have our recordings on IGTV. Well, probably not the meeting recordings, but like the presentation stuff. And here's hfmovement.org's website. You can check them out, volunteer with them here as well. And that's it. That's all of my stuff. Thank you so much for participating in the very first digital organizing workshop. My name's Hexel. I'll see you guys again on Thursday. And yeah, let's keep rocking. I'm going to close this Zoom and I'll see you guys around. All right. I wonder if I can unmute everyone. Yes. So if you want to say bye, you can say a big bye.
Bye.
Awesome,
Um,
Hexel.
Thanks
Bye.
again, Hexel.
That was awesome, Hexel.
Thank you.
Really awesome.
Great job, man.
I have to stop share. There you go. Now I can see people. So yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording and I'm gonna stop the